When we multiply algebra fractions, just like with number fractions, we multiply numerator by numerator and denominator by denominator. So my two fractions are equal to the 6x multiplied by the 5 over my first denominator, which is x minus 8, multiplied by the 2x squared. And just like with number fractions, I look to see if there are any common factors between any term in the numerator and any term in the denominator. I observe I have a 6 and a 2. They both have a common factor of 2, so if I divide the 6 by 2 I get 3, and I divide the 2 by 2 and I get 1. I also observe that I have an x and an x squared. They both divide by x. So if I divide x by x I get 1, and I divide x squared by x I get x to the 1, or just 1x. I now multiply what's left. That's 3 times 1 times 5, which is 15, over the x is multiplied by the bracket x minus 8, so x times x is x squared, and x times minus 8 is minus 8x. And we are done. On the right hand side I have an equation. The left hand side of that equation, I observe that I have two fractions multiplied together that are exactly the same as those two fractions that I have just processed. So if I process them in the same way, I would get exactly the same answer. So I can replace those two fractions with 15 over x squared minus 8x, and that's what I will do. So I end up with 15 over x squared minus 8x, and that must equal to the minus 1. Just like with number fractions, to get rid of a denominator, I multiply both sides of the equation by that denominator. So if I multiply both sides of the equation by x squared minus 8x, on the left hand side I end up with just 15, and on the right hand side I will have minus 1 times by the x squared minus 8x. If I now expand that bracket, I get 15 equals minus 1 times x squared is minus x squared, minus 1 times minus 8x is plus 8x. This is the form of a quadratic. To solve a quadratic I have to make it equal to 0. So I rearrange, I add x squared to both sides, and I put minus 8x on both sides. On the left hand side I have x squared minus the 8x plus 15 equal to 0 on the right hand side. The next step in solving this quadratic is to factorize. It's a 3-term quadratic, so it factorizes into 2 brackets equal to 0. To get x squared I must have x and x in both brackets. I also observe that I have a product of 15, so product equals 15, and I have a sum of minus 8, which means the two numbers inside the brackets must multiply together to make 15 and add together to make minus 8. That will be minus 5 and minus 3. I now have two brackets multiplied together to make 0. So either the first bracket, which is x minus 5, is equal to 0, or the x minus 3 bracket is equal to 0. The x minus 5 equal to 0 gives me that x is equal to 5, and the x minus 3 equal to 0 gives me that x is equal to 3. And these are the two possible solutions for that equation.